Hey everybody, I appreciate you joining us this morning. Gonna take just a few moments. You'll be proud to know I won't have to take the whole hour. But we're gonna take a few moments and talk about our C.A.R.E report system. The C.A.R.E report system is something that we have had on our website since before COVID. We didn't get to roll it out exactly the way that we had wanted to. It's a very good program, but you know, we did run into the COVID issue and spent the whole year dealing with that, and we just were not able to unveil it like we'd wished. And we had planned on doing some training and professional development earlier this year. It was scheduled, but then we had a severe weather issue and had to cancel, close the campus for that day, wasn't able to do it. So we haven't had a whole lot of opportunities to talk about the C.A.R.E report, so we're really glad to be able to do it today. The C.A.R.E report, C.A.R.E is an acronym for Communicate, Assess, Refer, and Educate. It is basically a way, an alternative way, means, or different avenue to report concerns to the appropriate personnel on campus. If one of these reports are submitted, it'll go to what's called a C.A.R.E team. And we'll talk about that just in a little bit longer. But it'll go to the C.A.R.E team. There is a variety of reasons that you can use the C.A.R.E report. It can be issues relating to a student's food insecurity, maybe a housing issue, maybe a mental health issue, and certainly any kind of safety and security issue, okay? Now, it's not something that we want to replace the traditional means of communication. Okay, it's not necessarily my way that I would like to see it preferably done, but it could be a way that someone who has important information, this may be the way they prefer to send that information to us. But it could be a variety of things that you can use this report for. And to get to it, you just simply go to our website. Do any of you, are you familiar with the C.A.R.E report and that we've had it on our website? Just to show of hands, how many of you are familiar with it? Okay, very good, very good. But you go to our website, you can go up to quick links, and right up here, and then once you get to that, you can come down to the campus police page and scroll down a little bit till you get to the submit C.A.R.E report. Talks a little bit about what it is, and then as you can see, it's pretty self-explanatory, the information that is needed. Some places don't ask for a name of a reporting person. And they emphasize strictly anonymous. So, but we were concerned about that here because we had a little bit of a concern with false reporting. So we were requesting that people put their name on it, and then just emphasize that we will, if all possible, keep their name, their identity out of the situation, whatever it may be. Vast majority of the time, we're able to do that. If we get into a situation where we cannot, where we have to talk about who the reporting person is, then that person will know about it ahead of time. We're not going to do anything that'll catch them by surprise. But back in, as you scroll on down, again, it asks for a variety of pieces of information. The checklist, if it could be, again, a clothing issue, a mental health issue. You know, we deal I was going to say we deal with a lot, but there are many circumstances in which a young person can go their whole life and not experience any kind of mental health issue. But suddenly, sometimes a young person, 18, 19, 20 years old, some quite severe mental health issues can surface. And we might be the first ones, instructors, people on campus, might be the first ones to see this occurring, okay? So this is a good way to report things of that nature. But back in the early 2000s, the Secret Service conducted some studies on some of the school shootings that was occurring across the nation. Columbine, and then even some prior to Columbine, and those that came after Columbine. There was, our nation suffered a lot of school shootings, and basically we still do today. But they conducted this study, and they came to they made a list, and this is where this list came from, was from that study. And they identified some of the common characteristics that some of these individuals displayed prior to the school violence, prior to that act of violence. So this list is derived from that study. Even though this list was put together many years ago, it still applies today. Okay, you can still use this list today. Maybe the biggest exception would be the use of social media. When this study was conducted and this list was compiled, we didn't use social media back then like we do today. And the reason why that's important to note is because a lot of times people that commit these acts of violence, they tell somebody. They tell us, it may be one person or a small group. Some people might even put it on social media. Maybe not for public display, but for a small group to see. And so that's really the only difference. One of the other conclusions that I think it's important to note that they came to was that there is no true profile for anyone who would commit this kind of violence in a school setting. The individuals that they studied came from a variety of different backgrounds, social, economic backgrounds, some with high IQ, some with low IQ. So you really don't think that when you spot a person that you will think that, no, that person wouldn't do it. If you notice a red flag or two, that you would think that the person wouldn't do that because maybe they don't fit this particular profile that you have and that you understand, or maybe fits the same profile as the person that committed the last school shooting does, exhibit the same kind of pattern. But, even though this is not I think it's a great way, and the biggest reason why, because it might be the best way the person who has that information wants to provide it to us, okay? But again, it's not to replace emergencies, and you may have a piece of information that you need to discuss with us now. So you can always pick up that phone, contact us, call us, we'll meet with you, and to discuss the situation with you. And then we can discuss and talk about how we need to proceed and kind of what we need to do next. In any way that, Matt, Sheriff Gentry touched on this just a little bit as well. A law enforcement agency really can be most successful by the partnership that we have with the community that we serve. And, from my experience, I can tell you that many crimes have either been prevented or solved because of information and feedback that we got from the community. So it's extremely important. We had another good aspect about this kind of a report is we had, and I can give you a good on-campus example. A couple of years ago, we had a young lady, 18, 19-year-old. She's very bright student, involved in a lot of different things on campus. Well, she'd been here for about a year, and she began to exhibit some very odd and strange behavior. And, you know, enough to make you think and wonder if she was experiencing some type of mental health issues, and I believe that she was. But this young lady was, of course, involved in, she was kind of a high achiever in academics. She was involved in athletics. She lived in the dorm. And she was also involved in some other extracurricular activities on campus. And as these issues that she was having began to emerge more and more, she began to exhibit those issues in all areas that she was involved in on campus. And what I think this report can help us do, and that it's important that each of us recognize what these red flags are and what these strange behaviors are. Anything that's out of character, like you'll see in this list, it can allow, it could be issues that are not emergent. It's not, you got to call 911. It's not a medical issue. It's just very odd, strange behavior. What this report system can allow us to do is each one of those areas that I told you about that she had these issues with, they really have no reason to communicate with each other. The people that seen these issues and noticed them, they might report up to their next line supervisor, but those individuals that either saw it or their supervisors they reported to really had no reason to discuss the issues with other people across campus. There's really no reason for them to do that. But what this report can do, it can allow those individuals in those different areas to submit this report, and it goes to one location. And that kind of information is valuable to us in being able to address that problem and that particular issue. But as a result, we kind of had to go through and piece things together, and it was much more difficult to do in order to accomplish. You know, now we have a campus counselor, and which is a great asset to our campus community. I'm very proud that that we have that resource available to us. But you know, it could be some issues that a student is having that really has nothing to do with our campus other than they just go to school here. But if you take a young person that's maybe experienced some type of trauma as a child or throughout their childhood, and they're trying to improve their life and make their life better by coming to Wallace State and getting a degree and changing their life for the good, but they're still suffering from some issues that the issues that they dealt with as a child, or even trauma they experienced even as an adult, and they're having difficulty. But if we can help get to that young person, whatever it may be, again, food issue, mental health issue, sexual assault issue, you may not know exactly what the root cause of that problem is, but you may see, the symptoms of it, and they're having difficulty getting through school. Again, that's when we need to act. That's when we need to respond. That go to that individual and help them, help them get the help that they need and the assistance that they need. But we find too often there's a reluctance to report an issue. Even sometimes safety and security issues, there's a reluctance to report certain things. It could be because out of out of fear that what if we're wrong? What if we call somebody in law enforcement and they respond and they wouldn't do anything wrong and we got them in trouble? Well, I'll tell you, that's really not going to happen unless they are actually doing something they shouldn't be doing, okay? But just because we get a report of someone behaving suspiciously or it doesn't mean that we should lose our professionalism. It doesn't mean that we're going to call in the SWAT team. We're going to handle that and address that issue, whatever it may be, as quickly as we need to and as professionally as we must. So don't, if we check it out and there's nothing to it, no harm, no foul, okay? You just have to trust your instincts, okay? Trust your instincts. Maybe y'all have heard me say that before, but I say it a lot. You got to trust your instincts. Normally what your first gut impression tells you is normally true. But what we do oftentimes is we start trying to reason and come up with excuses as to why the person is doing that, and maybe it's not as bad as we think it is, and let's just, if it happens again, we'll just, move on down the road, and if there's a problem later, we'll address it then. We see that a little too often. There's too much of a hesitancy to report things maybe when you should. But I also will say, report it anyway. Even if I still want you to tell us, even if it's something that, happened the day before, okay? Because it might link us to something that someone else reported to us. It might help us put some pieces of the puzzle together, if you know what I mean. Just, I want you to call sooner rather than later, but call us later if you didn't call us sooner. But there's some very good examples of people trusting their instincts and not. I think all of you remember Anaya Blanchard, the young Auburn student who was traveling from one place to another. She was kidnapped and killed. During that investigation, I think they revealed there was an individual who saw some of this. I don't remember exactly what part of it, but someone saw something very suspicious when they should have reported to law enforcement. It should have been a 911 call, but they turned a blind eye and thought, it's just not any of my business. Maybe they thought it was a dating issue or a domestic issue. It's none of my business, so I'm just going to turn away and mind my own business. And we all know the result. We don't know if a phone call at that time would have saved her life. We don't know that. But that person knows and understands they have to live with the fact that they could have intervened and done something. And then you have the situation where this was, I remember about a year ago, there was a restaurant in Florida. A waitress family had come in, man and woman, 2 small children, young boy, young girl. They seated the family at a table, and as the waitress continued to interact with the family, she began to notice that the little boy, who was about 9 years old, was very quiet, very withdrawn, was not able to order any food when everybody else at the table was able to order food. He was not able. She noticed some bruising on the child's arm, a small cut on his forehead, and the child just seemed to be very sad, very distraught, while the other 3 family members were communicating and so on. So she just knew that something was not right about this little boy. And so fortunately, she was able to position herself in a manner that she would have vision of this young fella, this young boy, and the rest of the family was unable to see her. So she took out a piece of paper and she wrote in large letters, "Do you need help?" And after several attempts, she finally got the boy's attention, and he nodded yes. Of course, he couldn't speak. He nodded yes. She called the police. Police came. Long story short, they followed up and determined that that little boy was suffering from a lot of physical abuse. They wound up going to the child's home, investigating. Both parents were arrested for child abuse. They found all kind of evidence of abuse. The chief of police, and it was in Orlando actually, the chief of police in Orlando said that that child was destined to die. I don't know if the chief was just being over dramatic, but that was a USA Today article. But that individual, trusting their instincts and seeing something suspicious, got the appropriate people's attention, reported it, and perhaps saved that child's life. Again, report even if it's after the fact. Okay. This is again, this is not for emergencies. And y'all know that. Just treat it's basically what you may experience at home as an emergency. Treat it the same way that you would here on campus. If there's a medical emergency, we want you, if you're the one that's seeing this and you're present and you know where you're at on campus, we want you to call 911. Don't call us or the switchboard to call 911. We want you to do that. And then get to us a little bit later, okay? So right now, let's just kind of go through and fill out a report just to kind of show you. It gets to us very quickly, okay? Let's see here. Let's go person providing, person of concern information. All right, just go there. Let's say the person's name is Wasi, okay? Professor Wasi or Dr. Wasi. You go on down, again, fill out all the appropriate information, all the information that you have. They're not all the fields are not required to fill out. Again, it's very easy. Let's say Dr. Wasi has difficulty controlling emotions. And let's see, Dr. Wasi also can be pretty demanding at times too. So go on down. And also there is a list of indicators and behaviors of suspected terrorists. And this list was developed pretty much the same way as the list above, is these are certain characteristics, techniques and procedures of those individuals who committed terrorist acts, okay? And don't, we can never underestimate that. We can never think that these kinds of issues will not happen here. There is a reason why police officers are in schools now and have been for quite some time. And I think we forget often why we have armed police on campuses, okay? Let me see, but again, a lot of different, sometimes it's hard to put into words exactly what you're seeing. Some of the odd behaviors. Sometimes it's just difficult to put it into words, but this is kind of gives you the vocabulary for that. Then, of course, we have to make sure that you're not a robot. And once you hit submit, the report will go directly to a C.A.R.E report team. It's 3 people. It's myself. In case it's a law enforcement security safety issue, Dr. Ryan Smith, in case it's a code of conduct type issue, and then Elise in HR, because, hey, it could be an employee issue. But it only goes to those three individuals, and it's very quick, and we'll see how long it took. Or I tested it the other day, and it took about 45 seconds for me to get the email. So let's see if it. See, what does that mean? Incorrect. There we go. So it took less than 30 seconds and I got the report already. I don't know what that other stuff is, but I have, but it's that fast. Anybody have any questions about anything? Again, we'll try to. We know confidentiality is important. It oftentimes depends on the circumstances and what's going on. Again, 99% of the time, we can keep reporter information confidential, okay? So do we have any online questions or? Very good. All right, guys. Hey, just remember, we're always here 24/7 around the clock. Y'all know how to get in touch with us. Anything else at all we can do to help you, please let us know. Thank y'all very much.